avail yourself of some active reflection and thinking. And today we're going to hear from each of them about their ongoing research. And we're going to start with Nadia Portelli and her presentation, 2.9 million connections.
Today I'm going to talk about a race I did last year, a very long one, which went viral. And like almost 3 million people viewed and commented on my race. So I will make reference to a name when I'm talking. TDS. TDS is the name of the race. So, you know, okay, just for first time, I'm trying to write in a poetic form. So here goes. A message arrived from my friend Stevie. Nadia, I wrote. Curious, I opened the message, a video, and suddenly there I was, hobbling towards the finish line. My body bent dramatically to one side, almost shocking to witness. I had not seen my own grand finale, I had lived it from the inside, through exhaustion, through fatigue, through the surge of emotion that carried me those final moments. I had lived it through the cowbells, through the strangers shouting my name, through the tears, through relief, through 43 hours of moving forward. And then, suddenly, I felt gutted, as if my life had been drained out of me. My heart dropped so abruptly. It felt though it had fallen through my chest. I looked horrible, old, fat, ugly. My stomach hung beneath my t-shirt. Clearly visible, my body looked swollen, distorted. For a moment, I stopped breathing. And then I watched the video again and again, each time in disbelief. Was this really me? The sight of my body struggling forward felt almost unbearable. I watched it again, the vulnerability of it, the rawness, the complete absence of composed, strong image athletes are expected to embody. No graceful strides, no upright posture, no victorious sprint beneath the blue arch, only a body, dirty, broken, leaning sideways, refusing to stop. My heart sank deeper. And then another voice. Open your eyes, girl. Look again. Look at that body that finished TDS, those legs that carried you through landscapes most people will never see, let alone traverse on foot. Look at those feet that crossed rivers, negotiated rocks, climbed mountains, and descended in darkness. That mind which made all those calculations, kept you company, made you laugh, reminded you how strong you are. That unique mind which negotiated fear, silenced doubt, and brought you to the finish. You are one of the few women in the world who finished the race. Yes, I look dirty. Yes, my body is inflamed. Yes, I am leaning at an impossible angle. My muscles wrecked, my posture broken by hours upon hours in the mountains. Yes, and still I finished. I achieved my dream. I am standing here wearing the finisher's gilet. I am proud of my run. I am strong. I am resilient. I am an athlete. I am, whether I intended it or not, an inspiration. Not looking the way a fine athlete is expected to look does not take any of that away from me. If this is what endurance looks like, let them see. Now, another part, I will show you the video after this. Millions watched a body leaning towards the finish line as if gravity had changed direction. Some saw a warning about pushing too far. Some saw pathology. Some searched for explanations, diagnosis, mistakes. But most saw strength. In sport, we celebrate speed, upright bodies, perfect strides under the finish arch, podiums, victories, records. This was not that. And yet, this was the moment that traveled the world. Not the winner, not the perfect finish, but this, a runner, dirty, burned, bent, visibly struggling, but still moving. They looked at the angle of my spine and saw what mountains can do to a human body. They saw 2 sleepless nights, the steep climbs, the silent calculations of distance, time, and will. They saw the cost of reaching the finish line. They heard the conversations I had with myself, somewhere between exhaustion and stubbornness. They heard the silent negotiations between body and mind. Just one more step. Just keep moving. You're nearly there. They felt the quiet moment when the finish line appeared, and I knew I would get there. They saw a body that did not look like victory, and still they celebrated it. Perhaps because they recognized something of themselves in that struggle. Perhaps because perfection is difficult to relate to, but perseverance is universal. I felt alive moving forward, knowing what it had carried me through 43 hours, 154 kilometers, nearly 10,000 meters of climbing, 2 nights in the mountains, one impossible dream. They saw a body refusing to stop. Perhaps that is what happens when a moment escapes into the world. The image becomes public, the meaning travels with it, and sometimes what resonates most is not the victory, but vulnerability, not perfection, but persistence. Let them see it for what it was. And now I'm going to show you the video, which around 3 million people saw. Okay. So that was it.
There we go. So, hello everyone. I am Chloe. I like to describe myself as a professional amateur triathlete, which means I spend far too much of my time, money, and effort on a sport that is absolutely not my job, and I spend far too long doing it. But with that, I'm in my second year of my PhD. And I'm looking at women in the sport of triathlon. And if we think about connection, part of the reason I wanted to do this PhD was that there's very few women in the sport of triathlon. Some of the statistics are around 10 to 20%, depending on the race that you do. So I was really struck by the complete lack of connection. But when you find somebody or another woman that you are racing with, that sense of connection is so strong. And there's no real research out there looking why that is and why there are so few women and why, our motivations, barriers, not a lot's out there. So that's why I wanted to do my PhD on that. And as a big part of that, I've got a big hefty autoethnography chapter that wasn't meant to be as big as it was, but I just kept writing. And I've got quite a few stories in there, which I've really, really enjoyed writing. It was a completely new process to me. So trying to kind of work out what I wanted to say and what that meant was quite a journey, and kind of coming to conferences like this and seeing how other people do it have been so useful. And I'm now kind of at a point where I'm ready to share some of those stories. So I've got a couple later that I would love to share with you. But yeah, the kind of title of my autoethnography chapter is, as this is Road to Kona. And Kona is one of the biggest races. It's the Ironman World Championships that happens every year. And I was very fortunate and lucky enough to go last year. I qualified to go. So my autoethnography chapter is looking at the journey of getting there and what's going on and what's happening. And yeah, it really struck me as I was writing it, the journey that I went on. And a huge part of that was the connections that I made. Triathlon is an incredibly lonely sport. You spend 15 hours a week on your own, running, on a bike, swimming, all things where you're very, very on your own. You feel very isolated. So when you go to a race and you finally meet people, you think, oh, actually, there's a whole triathlon community out there that I have not seen because I've been so alone. And so I really wanted to look at what those connections meant and how I connected with not just other women, but other triathletes. So a big part of my writing has been around that. So yeah, I think it'd be a good time to share a story about a friendship I made during my triathlon journey. And this one was on the road to Kona. And this was actually the morning of the race. And my friend Vicky and I were waiting to get in the water. We were both incredibly nervous. We'd spent the whole morning crying. We didn't quite know what was going on. We both kind of looked at each other. And as we were about to get into the water, we kind of looked at each other, and before I knew it, we were sharing a hug, and we were kind of standing there. And I don't think I've ever felt a moment of connection quite that powerful, where I thought, this isn't just about us, this is about all the women on the start line here. So this story is called Hug. Vicky and I didn't start out as friends. She started out helping me with my nutrition, spreadsheets and race day fueling plans, and her encouraging me to eat lots of chocolate crepes and something that resembles a kid's party. And somewhere in the months since, that turned into something entirely different, a close friendship, built the way a lot of the best ones are in this sport, through shared spreadsheets first, then shared vulnerability later. We both really wanted this, to be at Kona, to be here, both put everything into qualifying. And when we both did, we were buzzing, properly buzzing, the kind of joy that's better because someone else understands exactly what it costs to get here. We planned the trip together, shared accommodation in Kona, the two of us waking up in the same house in the days before the biggest race of our lives, going through it side by side instead of alone. The day before the race, we'd sat in the kitchen accommodation that we had, checking our kit, packing our bags, desperately trying not to freak out that the biggest race of our lives was very nearly upon us. It was almost go time. Now we're standing on the start line, swim skins on, the water in front of us, and I pulled her into a hug. It's not a quick, obligatory good luck hug. It's longer than that, tighter than that. I'm getting emotional just reading it. It is everything. The training we did separately in our own corners of the country, texted to each other in the evenings, complaining about how crap we felt, or we had a good swim, or were having a minor panic about a mystery niggle. The highs and the lows, we shared it all. I didn't have to explain anything to her because she'd lived a version of what I was feeling herself. The fact that we're here together on a start line, we both once weren't sure we'd ever get to. We both cry silent tears. Hers, I think, for the fear of the day ahead. Everything unknown, still waiting out there in the water and on the roads. Mine too, for that exact same reason, but also for something else, for the friend I'd made in this strange, all-consuming sport, and for the fact that we'd got to arrive here together. I catch the commentators noticing our hug, a thumbs up, aimed right at the two of us, two women hugging it out before the biggest race they'll ever do, probably. A small public acknowledgement of something private and enormous. I felt a part of something special in that hug, not just the community of women in this sport, the strangers that you meet in the loo queues before you start, the ibuprofen that's offered round because we all hurt quite a lot, and the beach full of women retelling the same story within minutes of something happening. This was more specific than that. This was a friendship that had been built deliberately over months, and we'd arrived at exactly this moment, exactly here, and exactly together. So yeah, that was our very special friendship moment before Kona. We both went on to finish the race and we had the most amazing time, and we still reminisce about it to this day. And we both continually talk about the connection and the people we met along the way and how special that was. Yeah, thank you so much for listening. There's lots more stories in there. Thank you.
So, I'm going to break the rules just a little bit. I'm sorry, but it feels difficult talking about a run or anything and sitting down. So just for a minute or two, this wasn't planned, forgive me, I'll be quick. Can I invite those who are able to or wanted to just come to your feet, please? Just introduce a little bit of movement, just breaths in and out. And just lift your arms if you are able to without whacking the person next to you. Just as far as you can reach to the top of your head and then down again. To the side like this and try to reach to the sides. Expand your chests. Just relax that. So, chests open. All good. You're welcome to take a seat again. There you go. Am I sitting in the right place? I don't even know. So, what I'll be sharing just with you today, my name's Niel, by the way, just by means of introduction. I'm currently doing a PhD, and what I'm about to share with you is a little bit of my methodology that I just happened upon during a run, strangely enough. And the title of my dissertation currently is Running Towards Belonging. And I'm very fortunate to have the fabulous David as one of my kind of supervisors and the wonderful James who can't be here. And this methodology, this thing I do, takes practice. And the invitation is to just be kind to yourself as you try it. So during registration, we've been handing out these little cards with some instructions on. We will be using that tomorrow morning on the guided walk, but you can also just take it with you and on your own walk and just try it and just keep at it. So a bit of writing. Finding my running companions. I've always been weird, strange, not quite normal, or so I've been told repeatedly. Today isn't about my life history. Today isn't about sanity, anything but. Today, my little presentation here is about running and finding friends. I run a lot, 1,000 miles over the last 6 months, and I don't have a lot of friends by choice. Or at least, I had a lot of people I called friends, and then I grew up and had 1 or 2 at a time by choice. The 2 friends I do have both run a lot. No coincidence there. One lives in South Africa and the other on the edge of Wales, both too far to just go for a casual run. And so it happened that I was running along, having an argument in my head about something outside of my control when I realized, wait, what? It was more of an oozing into consciousness than a realization. And then it landed. I didn't invite this person on a run with me. Why were they there? Why were they occupying space in my head on my run? And I clung to that question like a man clinging to a life raft. Why were they occupying my head? I read and read and wrote and wrote and ran over weeks, over many runs, an existential crisis. Again on a run, months later, I was still thinking about that question. Pixel by cursed pixel, the image started to emerge. I could see flashes of light behind my eyes as my brain tried to brain. Like ink spreads across a wet page, so did this thing form, micron by agonizing micron, until my watch beeped to check if I was still conscious. Standing still for over 10 minutes at a trail fork for this cursed gift to be given. And suddenly, no longer an oozing, but a flash. No longer a crisis, no longer cursed, no longer obscured. That bullying fucker was on a run with me because I let them be. Gesturing with my hands, I bracketed his brazen attacks. I shifted his pronunciation of faggot to the side, not dismissing, suspending, so that they had space to exist and provide balance. But under quarantine, the best brackets hold strong, but even the smallest ones provide space, not to bracket the outside world out, but to bracket some unhelpful thoughts in. And as my skill with bracketing grew, my thoughts became malleable. My brain was braining my body, while my body was bodying my brain. Unhelpful guests on the run, whoop, in a bracket you go. Not dismissing, but suspending. They started happening more and more. These deep insights, sudden epiphanies with immense transformative power. Like that time, I didn't know what to do at work, and suddenly I had created a deeply soulful intervention while on a run. Because Johnny and Sarah were bracketed, they still are, but not leaking into my joy. They existed in suspension. Another epiphany came to me then, as I was drinking in the view of 1,000 miles from the top of a mountain. Why don't I bring a question on the run with me? Kabam, kaboom, whoosh. Holy shit. Why don't I bring a question on the run with me? What rich writing I was able to now do, informed by a question on the run, not a question about running away from something, no, but a question about running with me towards my own deep transformation. The bracketing game grew stronger, the questions game became consistent, and just like my choice to have few friends, because, you know, people, I now had deep conversations with thousands of companions that I chose to invite on a run with me. This presentation, written yesterday while running in unknown woodland, because I took a question on the run. Accompanied by these wondrous companions, these questions that prompt and probe and stretch, these friends of mine that keep me company and change me, and which are now interacting with you. All you need is a will, a couple of brackets, and curiosity. The reward is life-changing. These companions on the run, these questions that connect body and brain, connect me to the world, connect me to possibility, and now connect me to you.
Thank you all three for your wonderful work and sharing that. We have a fair bit of time for some discussion, responses, questions, interaction. So I'm going to hand over the mic to anyone who would like to speak.
Thank you, three presenters. I don't have a question. I just have some reflections that came to me as you were speaking, and that I think I'll just kind of go. So Nadia, what came to me from how you spoke was this sense of the inside perception of ourselves and the external. So both are 100% realities in that moment. Your perception of yourself, which you felt was fat and ugly and slow and bent and everything, that was true. And yet the other was true of your courage, your resilience. And I think that just struck me as somebody I've done a study on the inside and the outside as a musician. But during that time, I also became involved in sports, and I did triathlon. And how you find the body and how being in the body gives you resilience for research and for life. And it kind of ties in with what you just said at the end there. I think I think as people that maybe don't run or don't push the body in the same way as you do, it can easily be to hear things like that and go, oh, that's so extreme. But knowing that in movement, whatever movement we choose to do, in that moment of movement, we find inspiration. When I get stuck in my research, I'll still go down the lane and shuffle. I call it now shuffling. But I go out, and in movement, an idea comes. We get unstuck in our research through movement. It's really clear. And it was interesting, Chloe, in your presentation, it came back to me how joining the Tri Club gave me a community. Yes, it was an insular sport, an individual sport, and I chose it because of that. But I found a community and a spirit of encouragement that I'd never known as a musician. I'd belonged in an orchestra as an individual in a community, But the feeling I got in the Tri Club was, it blew my mind. Somebody who ran for GB was writing me an email, "Oh, well done in your 5K," you know, and I was like, oh, it's something really special. And also I had a moment of hug like you had, but with my sister when I crossed the line in my own goal race. So it was just really lovely to connect with what I now call my old self, because I no longer do those things. But I think the idea of the resilience and the insight, the curiosity that you get, whatever our domain, we need that to fuel our interest and our passions. Yeah, thank you very much. It's really lovely.
I think it's definitely worth noting that I think all three of us are on the very extreme end of movement. I think that can be quite an intimidating thing. You know, people see some of the silly things that we do and go, that is really quite stupid. Why are you doing that? So I think it is really important to remember that that's it. Movement can be whatever you want it to be. And it can be, I'm going to just go for 5 minutes, get outside, change of scene. I think we've all just taken it a little bit far. I think we all went, right, let's see how far we can push this, rather than, oh, I just want to move for fun. Exactly. But there's different ways of doing that, exactly. And, you know, I think we've all seen as well that, you know, there are different times in your life where actually doing those extreme things aren't helpful. And maybe it is just a quick walk outside. Exactly. Yeah, thank you.
Lovely reflection. And I'm often asked by people, oh, how do you do that? And then they follow it with saying, I can never do that. And my response is always, but you don't have to. You know, for some people, a 2-kilometer walk is a real challenge. And that's the thing, right? So find your edge, and that's where the work sits. I can run 220 miles, and therefore I do. So it's not to say everybody needs to do that to have transformation, you know. If it's, I take my mom, for example, and she won't mind me saying this, she has a real challenge to just get around the block in their retirement village. And that's her exercise. And it takes her so much to do that. And it helps her transform. So it's find your edge is, I guess, the invitation. You don't have to sign up for a 200-miler. Or an Ironman or UTMB. But just find the edge, because that's where the work sits.
Anybody else online or in the room like to? Simone.
Yes, I find that reflection very nice. And yes, you are right. I'm a more or less militant walker. And I realize now, by having a certain experience in doing that, when I approaching a person in front of me, that they go away because they feel the other speed. And I'm not having a special training, but if I have no walks on a day, then I'm not sociable anymore.
You want to speak back? No. You.
I'm not a walker and I'm not a runner. And I'm not an ethnographer either. So I'm not quite sure why I'm here. But anyway, I wanted to say something to Nadia mostly, but actually connects to you guys ultimately too. And it has to do with the relationship with our bodies, right? I think that in the end, what people forget a lot of the time is that we are our bodies too. And there's been centuries of this disassociation between the brain and the body, and, you know, valuing our, you know, sort of thought processes and ignoring the fact that we have this vehicle that we live in and is actually us. And so I can say from my personal experience, not sports, that I grew up thinking there was something wrong with my body because of all the, you know, expectations in society and all that sort of stuff. And so probably the most terrifying thing for me was to lose that control when I became pregnant. And both times I put on a massive amount of weight. and it was shocking. It was shocking to see the change. But I have to say, after the second pregnancy, I started realizing that my poor little body had taken me through this whole process. You know, it had served me to bring my beautiful children into the world. And I realized that I really had to love my body because it cares for me. It houses all of me, my mind, my, you know, what I do, what I think, etc. So I think that caring for your body and not sort of looking at it and saying, oh, it looks like this and it looks like that, but thinking that it takes us through life. And that is not a small thing, I think. So adding to that, sort of autoethnography makes us reflect on these points, like from a sports point of view, because that's what my research is. Like sports wants us, the sports narrative is the dominant narrative in sports mostly is about performance, having the most athletic body, doing the best times that you can do, being this, being that, eating this, you know, not eating that, having that much body fat, and so on. No, it doesn't necessarily has to be that. That is what the culture is pushing through. Most people are not like that. Okay, even the elites. We get to see what the media shows us. We don't know what's happening in their life, you know, and how they behave in their life and what they do. Sort of, so the culture is pushing that, but I hope through our work we show that it's quite different. It's not what real people are. Okay, so I finished that big race. I wasn't graceful. Like in my mind, like I wanted to sprint the last meters through the main road of Chamonix with the Maltese flag and so on. Like I had been dreaming about that moment for hours and hours. And then when I arrived in Chamonix, I had to walk like a 90-year-old woman, bent like that. And I didn't mind actually at that moment. Like I said, I'm going to finish. And I did it on my own steam, through my own training, and that's it. Afterwards, like the culture put that back in my mind again, like you're looking like that, finishing like that. But then I had a rethink about it now, like I did what I intended to do, like I am worthy of everything I got. So yeah, so through our work in autoethnography, we challenge these narratives, okay, which try to push agendas on us. Okay, that's my reflection. Anyone else wants to join?
Thanks. So I do not particularly physical. My area of research for the last 2 decades is silence. And I hope I'm not going to spoil the party, but I was wondering, seeing this spring, is it the case of the fear of vacuum, horror vacuum, the fear of emptiness, this burst into running and running and running and challenging? An idea.
I suppose for some it can be, right? For some it can be. My own experience is I think I'm running towards something and not running away from something. So I have lived a life, you know, a childhood full of abuse. So, and then I drank a lot and quit drinking. So for me to feel something, I need to really apply myself. And I find myself en route during a 200 miler. So I'm not at all running away from, you know, childhood trauma or alcoholism or something. I firmly believe I'm running towards belonging because I find my place in the world by doing that. And for someone else, it could be knitting. So there's a thing, and I suppose for some it can be running away. And I'm just giving the balance that for some it can be going towards a thing. So it's an interesting question.
Yeah, interesting what you said about running towards something. And I don't run anymore, but I lift weights, not too much. But I love the feeling of the silence that I get in my head when I just lift and drop the weight slowly and lift and drop the weight slowly. The rhythm of it just clears my mind and I get into a state of flow. That's impossible to achieve without this physical aspect of it. And yeah, very powerful. So can't wait for the walk and for the guided walk tomorrow. And yeah, thank you.
Nadia, Chloe, Niel, do you want to speak? Okay, we still have, it's nice to have time to just share this around. Yeah.
Thank you all so much. It was so nice to hear you speak after meeting you this morning. And I really love this idea of bracketing. I really, that, not dismissing, but suspending, is that what you said? Yeah, I love that. I work as an outdoor psychotherapist, and where I meet clients is a half-hour walk from my house. And so as I'm walking, things that are kind of on my mind and might distract me, I picture, I let them kind of run through, and then I place them in a seashell, like a clam shell, and I close the shell and I put it in my pocket. And I put it in my pocket. I don't like suspend it out, but actually I really love this idea of, because they are existing somewhere out there, and these ideas that I'm putting in a shell in my pocket are sort of my things, but actually when you're thinking about them as connections with other people who are, they are existing out there, they're just bracketed so that they're not on this run with me or on this walk with me or in this moment with this client with me. But I'm gonna use that. Thank you. And and also the intentionally bringing a question on a run as well. I feel like I write my best when I'm running, and then when I get home and type it out, that's not really the writing happened on the run. The typing is the transcribing of what happened. And I don't often bring an intentional question on a run, but actually the inviting certain writers or theorists onto a run with me. I really like that idea. So thank you. I'm definitely going to use that. I appreciate it. Not really a question, but thank you. Yeah.
I just love it. And in return, I thought, oh, I'm going to put something in a clamshell. I put it in my pocket, I love it. And I think for me, part of the practice has become that I actually go visit those in the brackets during a run. So I'll check in, going, you still there? Still relevant? And if yes, well, back in your bracket, thank you. So, and the practice, you said, well, the writing happens on the run and kind of the transcribing happens later. As I became more proficient in bringing the questions on the run, I had to start doing little videos, just speaking into my phone, because I'd have so many questions that I kind of follow, and then so much content that got lost. So that might be an addition as you just build the muscle to go, here's a bit of a clip. Thank you. I love it.
If anybody online would like to speak, please, you are welcome as well. And I will hand back. Elise? Hello, Elise. Can you Elise, I think your mic is muted.
There. It is 3 a.m., so please excuse me if I don't hit the right buttons. One of the things I so appreciate about all three of you
second,
is
Elise, if you could. We can't hear you yet.
Really?
Can you try
I'm
again? Lisa?
unmuted.
Yeah, I can hear
We can hear
you.
you now. Perfect.
Oh, okay. Good morning. One thing I so appreciated about all three presenters is even as they're talking so much about pushing what bodies do, that you are all so sensitive to issues of able-bodiedness, right? That what a body can do and how it experiences is unique to that particular body in that moment. And I'm seeing that, across all of them, even though many of you are working in physical ways that are far beyond what my body is likely to do. There's a wonderful inclusion. And so I appreciate Niel getting us up to breathe, right? And so here online, I'm doing the breathing, the ways in which, bodies get involved, because our bodies are always in motion, evolving, moving to and from shape, size, ability. And that is always never static, but in motion. So while I am not a runner or a hiker or a triathlete, my body is always trying to climb mountains of able-bodiedness. So at that metaphoric level, you help me really connect that as a practice for thinking about how one connects across that. So I appreciate that across all of you. Thanks.
Thank you, Elise. Would anybody like to? We'll come to Bethan.
It was just to do with bracketing. In what you said about the bracketing, it brought to my attention that what my research has done is to unbracket. So I came as a researcher and I thought I was going to be researching about a thing, which was the story of my body in relation to my violin. That was my autoethnographic study. But in doing the research, which is why it's still not submitted 8 years later, I discovered there were bracketed parts of me here, there, and everywhere that had never been part of my professional identity, that had actually never been much part of me. And I discovered the reason why that was so. She was there, and through the research, the brackets had to be gently held and put down, which invited these parts to become center and to tell their story in the research. So it was just really interesting about the idea of the clam or the brackets, how maybe it's the opposite that happens in research, that you think you bring all of you to the table and you go, oh, I see that, I understand now. Do you know what I mean? So it's this, it can be the opposite, but it's the same. It's more discovery of the self, whichever way you bring it. So that was just a...
Okay, we've got a couple of minutes. I'm going to use the time, if that's okay, and ask a question. Nadia, you kind of touched on this a little bit already, but it's something Niel said. You mentioned at a point about being kind to yourself. And I've never done an Ironman or triathlete. I've not done an ultra running, but I think I'm in a phase of my life I've had to learn to be kind to myself and to practice that, find self-compassion. And so I'm interested, as an outsider to your activities and the intensity and extent of them, how are you kind? How do you practice kindness to yourself, self-compassion within a 220-mile run, or within an Ironman triathlon, or within the ultra running that you're doing, Nadia? Any or all of you, that question?
I mean, yeah, it's important. What I can say, it took me years to learn. I wasn't like this. I've been running for 30 years, like not always ultras, normal races. And I used to push myself. Once I did 100 kilometers in the mountains with a broken knee. And like, I remember at 50K, I said, I had arrived in Switzerland, and I said to myself, so I have two choices. And I put this with my hands. I continue and feel the pain. But then, sort of, if I stop, I will live with the regret of not finishing. So I decided to continue. Like, I wouldn't do that now. I still needed to run another 3 mountains. So that was years ago, and I wouldn't do that. I had to work on it. Master, like, really push in my mind what is really important. Is it the time or my life? Sort of, if I want longevity in the sports, will a few seconds or minutes are they more important than my health? So that's it. But it didn't come naturally to me. I had to work a lot on it. I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult. And I think, again, just by the nature of the things that we do, we're very used to teetering on that edge of, am I taking this too far? Is this dangerous? Am I going to hurt myself? And I've had to work really hard at checking in and going, is this silly? Is this supposed to be, am I just fatigued? Is this, a natural part of training? Or is this, I've taken this a step too far now? And again, I think it comes with a lot of that questioning yourself of, am I making the right decision here? And quite often you're not. I've definitely done a lot of these things and gone, ooh, that slight leg pain was actually a stress fracture in my shin. I probably shouldn't have kept running. So it's taken years of checking in, questioning, is this a good idea to get here? And I'm still not very good at it now. So I can't sit here and say I've worked it out, because I absolutely haven't. So it's definitely something I think we all need to consider, isn't it? It's very easy to take it one step too far.
I had a glib response to you. They were going, well, I don't. Well, I don't. So, I have 2 words for you. But I think in seriousness, I really, really know my body. I have a really intimate sense of what's going on at any given time. And maybe to my detriment, or maybe not, I have a lot of medical knowledge too. That was my first degree, was pre-hospital emergency medical care. So I know when I look at something going, is that going to kill me? I go, no, then it's fine. So, but I don't think it's such a straightforward thing as, showing self-care. I will never do something willingly that I know is going to, cost me a leg or my life or something. And yet I have the capacity to really push myself beyond typical boundaries. And just me framing it as pushing myself, it is, is there a thing about self-care or self-harm? And I think ethically there is. And I typically need to check in with myself every couple of kilometers and go, is this my ego running, or is this me running? And at stages where I went, this is my ego, I withdrew from the race, because that then becomes a gamble that I'm not playing that game, because the injuries that have brought about have sometimes put me out of running for 6 months, 8 months. So it's that really intimate balance. And I would say any form of running or hiking or living has an occupational hazard. So I'm not dismissing it. And there will be a degree of damage. And it's what is ethically acceptable for self and others. And if I ever become a role model, it's paying that attention to, there is a thing like too far. But for me, it's a constant thing on a daily basis. The run I did yesterday in 32 degrees Celsius, if I wasn't heat acclimatized, that would be exceptionally dangerous to do. So it's a daily thing and a daily negotiating. And I really love that question. And I think we need to explore that a bit more.
Okay. Thank you again to our 3 presenters, Nadia, Chloe, and Niel. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your interactions. Yeah.